moving. Perfect. Thanks for remembering the recording, Bill.
Yeah.
Justin,
Here.
Krista Silva.
I'm here.
I thought so. Greg Johnson,
Here.
Mary Brandley,
Here?
Hillary. I didn't see Hillary here. Brian,
Here.
Mike Stevens has notified me he has a conflict, will not be attending tonight. Rob Rouleau.
Here.
Thanks, Rob. Is Jennifer on here? Didn't see
Yep,
her.
here.
Oh, good. Thank you. And Wayne,
Yep, I'm here.
good. Thank you. I'm here. Mark Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. Anthony.
I'm here.
I thought so. Okay. Got to find that mute button. Matthew Johan will not be here. He has the flu. Nick.
I'm here. I do not have the flu.
Oh, excellent, Nick. We're so happy to hear that.
Right?
Yeah. Ken Newhouser. Perfect. Josh.
I'm here. My daughter has the flu.
Oh, jeez.
I guess it's going around. Official. now.
I guess so. Charles Gabron. Yeah, I think I saw you on here, Charles. There's Rob Savoy here. Is Katie Moore dialed in? Is Gavin?
Yes, I
Gavin?
am here.
Okay, Katie. Is Kevin Stone dialed in? I do not see. But of the voting members, we have a quorum. We're good to go. So let me just read off what I need to read. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, signed into law by Governor Healy on March 29th, 2023, several pandemic-related relief provisions suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GLC 30A, Section 20, were further extended until March 31st, 2025. All members of the public are invited to join the meeting virtually or by computer, or as noted below. If joining virtually, video and audio will be turned off for public participants unless otherwise stipulated by the chair. And ultimately add to that, if there are public comments, I'll take those when we're finished with the presentation materials for the meeting. So we will entertain any comments or questions from the public, but please make note of them as we go through the meeting, and then we'll address those issues afterwards. I see that Phil has the meeting agenda up with the roll call. Prior meeting minutes, Phil had sent out an email a few days ago, I want to say, had the meeting minutes from February 26th. I am assuming that everybody has a chance to at least look at the meeting minutes themselves, not necessarily review the whole presentation, but the minutes. Are there any questions or edits that anybody saw? If none, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Any issues? I don't see or hear anybody. Would somebody move to vote for approval?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of the February 26, 2024 meeting.
Thank you, Mary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, by a roll call. Justin.
Yay.
Krista Silva.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Hillary's not on. Brian.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Wayne.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Ken. I know you can find that button, Ken. We'll move on. Josh.
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
thank you. Thank you,
I thought I
Ken.
still had it on.
No. Josh.
Yes.
Thanks. That's it for voting members. Minutes are approved. Project schedule, I'll give that over to you, Phil and Chris, and do your thing.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Jerry. So on the slide here is the DD through printing schedule. An item that's going to be discussed later on in the presentation is a site design change that is if approved, is gonna push our SBC approvals, all three of them coming up. So design development, the phase we're in now, 60% construction documents, and then 90% construction documents. We have a schedule set, so where this arrangement here, where we submit the 90% submission to MSBA, they have a 3-week review, and we get back to them 2 weeks later on our responses to their design review. I was originally showing that a little bit fatter than it's currently showed here. So technically, we're always going to be going out to bid early December. So going out to bid has not really changed. We're still showing early December to go out to bid. So this 4-week push that Chris and his consultants are going to present is kind of internal to the design process. So just keep that in mind. But to highlight the upcoming building committee approvals to get your blessing to submit to the MSBA for design development, 60% construction documents and 90% construction. There are those scheduled. So we were showing April 22nd for your approval to submit the DD submission to MSBA. That gets pushed to May 20th. One thing I'll highlight, and you know what, I'll do it at the next slide. But that gets pushed to May 20th. 60% building committee approval gets pushed from June 24th to July 29th. Then the 90% construction document building committee approval gets pushed from September 30th to October 28th. And to highlight the design development phase. So again, we were showing an April building committee meeting for your approval, April 22nd. The plan is we've already sent the progress set to the estimator. So that was this past Friday. You've all gotten a link to it. The plan was, and it still is, to just keep moving forward with that estimate process, because if we were to also push that out, that would add another 3 to 4 week push on top of the 4-week push we're going to be talking about. So we didn't think that was necessary, because we feel like the site design change is something cost-wise we think we can catch up with at the 60% CD estimate and not be overly concerned as it relates to the control budget, design budget. So we're moving forward with the DD estimate process. So that estimate reconciliation meeting's always been scheduled for April 16th. That's still the case. We were showing April 22nd for the building committee meeting, being that we're gonna not be seeking your approval on the actual submission till May. We pushed this April building committee meeting out to Monday, April 29th, just to give the estimators and some time to kind of clean up the estimate analysis and get it to you guys. So you have some time from receipt of it to the actual building committee. So the April building committee meeting right now is scheduled, or we're slating it for April 29th.
Hey, Phil,
Yep.
just a quick thing. Your microphone is breaking up periodically. Some of your words are getting a little
Okay.
squirrely. That's better.
Is
Thanks.
this better? Okay.
Yep. Better.
So April 29th for the April building committee meeting. This new line item here. So, because to date, we've kind of been talking about the early site package, but we hadn't captured it in the schedule yet. So this is showing Mount Vernon Group and his team having the early site package bid docs done by May 10th. So we can have a 4-week bid process, if you will, for site subs, and be able to contract with a site sub and get going once students and staff are out of the building by the end of June. So that's that line item. SBC approval for the DD submission to MSBA. That's that new May 20th date. Submitted to MSBA, and then the MSBA design review process and us responding back to them. Any questions? And I know you're going to hear more from Chris and his consultants on the site design change, but any other questions related to schedule? Again, we feel comfortable that we're still essentially going out to bid when we've been planning. Early site package is still intact. The plan is still to deal with that. So big picture schedule wise, we think we can handle the change within the parameters we've been working with. Okay, so that's schedule update, budget update. So since we last met with you all, we've plugged into the budget Collier's February invoice in the amount of $20,519.20. And then Mount Vernon Group's March invoice in the amount of $334,500, totaling that $171,633.20. So just highlighting, so OPM budget line item, that paid amount goes up for that invoice, and then the A&E line item goes up by that $334K for Mount Vernon Group's invoice. I'm highlighting this other admin cost budget line item of $75K because we're gonna, in an upcoming slide, present to you a proposal from Beacon Integrated for solar energy consulting services, and this is the budget line item that would get pulled out of. And then the other A&E cost budget line item, that'll be the budget line item that we pull the ad service proposals that will be presented later on in the presentation. Mount Vernon Group, one for them, one for their civil engineer, and one for the landscape architect. And then on the upcoming slide, we'll present a ad service proposal for additional site survey work, and that's the budget line item that would get pulled out of. And then just the remainder of the total project budget, construction costs, miscellaneous project costs, FF&E contingency, $83.6 million total project budget. Any questions on the budget update? And we'll get into specifics on the proposals coming up. Okay. So next agenda item. So this was sent off to you all later last week. Beacon Integrated Solutions, Solar Energy Consulting Services. So this is the vendor. Beth Greenblatt is the main person from the company that the town coordinates with quite frequently on all their solar endeavors. And so she put together a proposal for consulting services specifically for the Green Meadow project. So the fee amount not to exceed 10K plus reimbursables on top of that, hourly rate of $160 per hour, and the guesstimate or the hour amount within that not to exceed 10K is right around 62 hours. Scope of service, site selection as it relates to where we're going to be locating these photovoltaic systems, as well as battery storage, facilitation with the power options, provide general and economic consulting support, and then attendance at meetings, presentations, and so on. Any questions on Beacon's proposal? And I'll just say, I see your hand, Mary. So we've already to date have had a meeting with Beth Greenblatt, Chris, and the town. Justin DeMarco was in attendance to kind of talk big picture, next steps for solar design and options and all that. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, so having just gone through this with the solar panels that we've got going on to the high school, and having some starts and stops with not Beth. Beth is a great consultant, but with Select. I'm wondering, are we locked into Select? It kind of looks like it. No, we're not. So we can go out to bid. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't be, because the good thing is that we're going to be ahead of the game, because we'll see how things are working with the high school, a good year and a half before we actually need them. But I just want to make sure we're not necessarily locked into them.
Yeah, no. So acquiring Beacon's services does not lock us into Select. And Beth very much indicated that sentiment at our meeting that I was just referring to. And she's all about kind of giving us the facts and guiding us to what's best for the project. No, so she doesn't have any connection to Select, and she wouldn't push that on us.
Great, terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Approval when it's ready.
Do we need a second?
I can second.
Jerry's on mute. There you go.
Yep, I got it. I lost track of where my button was. I should learn these things. So this is approving the solar energy consulting service proposal By a roll call. Voting members, Justin,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Hillary's not on, Brian,
Yes.
Mike Stevens, Rob,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Excuse me, Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
that's you, Nick,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
perfect, unanimous, approved.
All right, thank you all. Next agenda item, MVG site survey proposal review and vote. So this was sent off to you all. So Sammy Oates is Mount Vernon Group's consultant for the site surveying services. The area here in red was part of their kind of base contract work for site survey, approximately 32 acres, 33 acres. This blue area here is the location of the geothermal well field, so they want to get a survey done of those parameters. So this fee amount of $7,150, that includes Mount Vernon's markup, would be for that site survey work. And I had sent a question over to Chris to just get some general background on the fee. In the response we got from CMEO, it's the tree locations in the woods is a very tedious process. That is the biggest cost factor for this task that we expect to take 2 to 3 days on site. This area of the site is also far from the road, and most of the survey control we will need to find and tie back into before we can traverse to this wooded area and begin taking topo locations. So that's some background as to the fee. Any questions on that proposal?
I guess I have a tiny question. What's the 7150 percentage compared to what they were at before? It should be like, just looking at how much the green, the red was, the blue should be, you know,
Yeah,
10%
well,
or something.
right. So off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure, but like we did that math when reviewing their fee amount, and hence why we asked them the question. Like if I took their fee per acre to do this, and don't quote me, it was somewhere around $1,600 per acre, something like that, or 1,600 and change. And this is obviously different, and hence why I reached out to find out why that was. In my head, I was thinking maybe economy of scale or what have you, but
Second trip and all that. I got you.
after hearing their response that I just read off, I felt like it made sense.
Okay.
And in comparison, and this isn't uncommon, it happens on a bunch of jobs where you have the initial survey work, and next thing you know, you're looking into the area over here or over there, and so you want to get some additional site survey work done. And it might be an acre, half an acre, 2 acres, and the economy of scale never jives with what the original fee was. So this aligns with what we typically see.
Thank you.
Yep.
Could I have a motion to move on this vote? The MVG site survey proposal.
So
I'll
moved.
move it. Oop. It's all yours, Ken.
All right, thanks.
Okay, Ken moved. Who's gonna second?
I can second.
Mary, second. Thank you. Okay, again, we're voting on this one for the MVG site survey proposal by a roll call. Justin,
Yes.
thank you. Chris,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark?
Yes.
Excuse me. Thank you. Anthony,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
perfect, unanimous, it's approved.
Thank
Next.
you.
Thank you. Next
This is
item.
pretty much going to pay for itself when the savings of piping and everything else, right? Like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that, and we have a budget set up to
Yeah.
accommodate stuff like this. So yeah, it's all there. Okay, so next agenda item, design update. You want to take this, Chris?
All right, thanks, Phil. So
What we've been working on behind the scenes since our last meeting is continued design development coordination, getting ready for our submission. And then some of that includes, coordinating on a weekly basis, daily basis, if you will, with all of our consultants. If you remember correctly, the schematic design, we had an approved plan, both building, site, et cetera. And the design development phase takes that approved schematic design plan and continues to evolve it, flush it out, answer all the questions and get everything in line so that during the next upcoming 60%, 90% phases, we're just kind of filling in the gaps with the details, et cetera. So MSBA likes to see that everything's been addressed, right? We've gone through all the process. We've started selecting equipment, materials, et cetera, for the school project and the site, that we started to vet out all of the design process, which you'll see in the upcoming slides is, things like the drainage, the grading. We've got a couple of submissions coming up, meetings with Concom and the planning board for site plan approval. So we need to have a lot of that information as well during the design development process worked out. And then all the intricate details will continue on through the 60%, 90%. So that's where we're at. We've, meeting in-house with our consultants, with the vendors that we're looking to, specify products with and things of that nature. And we're going to continue to hold meetings with the town departments and some of the working group that we have been discussing, security, site and building, and sustainability. I'll be briefing you on that as well. So that's kind of where we're at. This process is in depth, and we're just flushing everything out. The first thing we'll start talking about is the site revisions. So a couple of weeks ago, Brian, after we had our security meeting, Brian sent me an email asking about some of the things in the site. Can changes be made? They've been talking, with the administration, et cetera, on what some of those concerns were. And what I'll do at this point, before we actually get into some of the solutions, I'll let Brian, Rob, and their staff kind of present the questions and what their thinking is and why they've asked them. So Brian, if you want to fill everybody in.
I can start off. And this is a great slide that you're showing, because when we started this process, if the committee remembers, the playgrounds were actually behind the building. And then we met with police and fire and safety and said that's not in our best interest. They would prefer they're more visible from Great Road. So we moved them to where they currently are. And at the time, there was actually an entrance at the end of that hall. But then time went on and we needed another classroom. So that entrance at the end of the hall where Chris is showing went away. So now the entrance is really the main entrance to the building. So then as we started to go along and we started to talk about safety, and that meeting in particular kind of kicked it off, that having the playgrounds where they currently are to move the most amount of kids, move 100 first graders or kindergartners, take your pick. And if you've ever seen it or done it, it's a little bit like herding cats. It's a lot of little bodies to move, and it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. And then once you get them there, so this would require us to either go through that wing, which that's a lot of bodies to move through classrooms that may be in session, or go out the main entrance of the building and then all the way along the building to the playground. And as you know, what will happen is somebody gets a hangnail, somebody skins a knee, somebody needs the nurse. They're logistically and operationally, moving the playground makes sense for the next 50 years. It'd be nice if this conversation came up 6 months ago. I'll, completely agree. But now that we've really started to flesh out the safety aspect of this, it makes a lot of sense to make this adjustment for student safety, for the operations of the building. And there are some advantages, which I think Chris will be able to show in terms of parking. And I know actually on this meeting, I invite Rob's always on these meetings. He's here, as is the assistant principal, Karen Lindquist. So if you want to hear more about really the operational of moving a grade level of kids from the cafeteria to a playground and back and forth, they're here to really answer firsthand, like this is what they do day in and day out, 4 or 5 times a day, why this is really necessary. And I know she's on because I saw her name. I may not see her face, but she is here. There's Rob.
Real quick, I'll just clarify something real quick, and then Rob, you can take it away. So just so people, so the pre-K playground here is still staying here, and pre-K kids head out and they go to the pre-K playground. We're talking about the K-3 playground here, just so
Yes.
folks are aware.
Thanks, Phil.
Yep. Go ahead, Rob.
All right,
Okay.
so as Phil was talking about, if we look at the design, is we have designed it so there is about 6 preschool classrooms. And if you look at those classrooms as you go down, that's approximately 85 students that we need to go out to recess on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times. And then you have your nurse's office, which is down in the other section of the building. And then what we were talking about was, when we were really looking at this design, kids eat lunch every day in the cafeteria. And then from the cafeteria, they go out to the playground, K-3. The preschool students eat in their classrooms, and they can easily then go out to their playground area. So trying, as Brian said, is to bring 100 students who are now eating in the cafeteria, which is in a different section of the building. They would have had to go exit out the front of the building, go down the walkway or the road all the way down, out down towards the playground area. This leads in some issues for safety concern for us in moving those students during all types of weather, and also in case of an emergency that takes place. Also in case of any other safety issues, such as if Karen or I get called via walkie-talkie or anything, by the time we can get there. So we made an adjustment and requested that the playground for K-3, which would also be the public aspect to this, be moved more towards the right, to the left-hand side of the building. And this would allow for us to move the kids safely from the cafeteria over to that. It would also allow for better access to the field, which will be designed later on. And it also allows for parking, more substantial for the parking to take place. So Karen and I, after the security meeting, sat down, contacted Brian, and then we contacted Phil and Chris to just have this kind of conversation. So we're presenting this to you guys at this time.
Yeah, so if there are any questions for Brian or Rob at this point, then I can go into some of our thoughts.
Mary's got her hand raised.
Yeah, just a couple. So Brian, you had said that with the K-3, that the largest class size is 110 to go out to the bigger play area. I like this idea. Just a couple of questions. So, and if there's 85 kids going in the preschool, isn't that too small of an area? Shouldn't it be pretty comparable in size to what the bigger one is for same number of kids? I know they're smaller kids, but it seems like the original one that where the pre-K is going to be is actually going to be too small for the number of kids. No?
Chris, do you know that?
Yeah, so
I'm happy
Mary-
to answer that too, Chris, if you like, for square footage, but you go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. So we have Lynn Kasecki from Studio 2112. She's our landscape architect. And Chris Emilius from our civil group, Brennan. And I'll just fill you in briefly, Mary, and then I'll let Lynn take over. So these are preliminary areas. Lynn still has to do her calculation of the actual area for the student count for play areas, and we just got an updated number from Rob and his staff on actual pre-K versus K-3. So that's part of the design development process that we're going through now, is these areas will be flushed out. Would that be correct, Lynn?
Yes, that's great, Chris. Thank you. Yeah. So, Mary, hi, everyone. You bring up a great point. We have typically, we heard last week that, they're looking about like 80 kids, it's maybe 85 for the pre-K space. There are metrics that we use for the square footages for gross motor skills play for kids. It's for pre-K, 75 square feet per student is pretty good, for pre-K and gross motor skills. And I think what this change will allow us to do is, as you can see here, we might be able to flex our elbows a little bit and make that space a little bit larger. But what we have right now for the K through 3 is actually spot on for like really great square foot, 200 square feet per child for gross motor skills is perfect with what we have. However, one of the things that we'll be looking at, if this change is approved this evening in this next phase, is what is that square footage if we move it to the other location, knowing that we also have that co-location with the field. So these are all things that are in great consideration for all of us. As you know, if we're approved to study this change, we will be looking at this. So currently, both playgrounds are appropriately sized for the number of students and those age ranges, but that's absolutely something that we're taking into account as we, if we're allowed to go forward with this consideration.
Great, thank you, Lynn. The other question that I've got, so I'm thinking that we're gonna need double the playground equipment, because before we were gonna need one set of playground equipment, but now we're gonna have the 2 different fields, so that means more money.
Well, Mary, no, we would always have pre-K always has their own separate playground area that is completely fenced. So those things are designed for children up to the age of 5. That's the way that the playground like world breaks down. And then we go, the next round of play equipment would be 5 to 12. So we've always required 2 different locations for play areas, having the little ones completely separated with their own special equipment and a fence.
Okay, great, thank you.
Ken?
Yeah, thank you. So wondering if somebody could speak to how this impacts safety, security, with regards to circulation, and whether, for example, would we have an opportunity to close off that inner loop during recess periods? And I'll take my answer off the air.
Yeah, you know, Ken, there's always that opportunity. Many districts go through the same thing, same considerations, closing off, whether it's the parent drop off around the back or the bus loop in the front during school hours. Typically there would be minimal traffic there anyway, but we will certainly look at that with the district, and is that something we want to do? Keep in mind right now, these kind of sketches, if you will, are an immediate response or thoughts based on what we heard from Brian and Rob and Karen last week. So we just came up with some quick ideas. You know, the extension of the 4 weeks is really to vet this out, to make sure that we get the appropriate adjacencies, we get the, the parking, the grading works out. There's some new calculations for drainage that have to be done for stormwater, et cetera. This kind of switch, if you will, or swap, does offer some really nice opportunities, not just for the play area and parking, but based on what we heard from Rob and Karen, was the pre-K parents pick up and drop off at different times. So if they're picking up their children a little earlier, as Rob mentioned, a lot of times they'll right now park at Crow Park, and while they're waiting for their kids to be picked up, other children may be using the play area, right? So if we kind of create a parking area to replicate what was being taken from the play area and move to the front, that gives parents who may want to park there while they're waiting for their pre-kids to come out at, either the front entrance or the pre-K entrance, and then immediately thereafter or before use the pre-K play area space for other children, right? I'm sure they're bringing their other children with them to pick up kids, et cetera. So that's a good opportunity. As Lynn mentioned, moving the larger play area for the older children to the front, that offers an opportunity to get those kids not only in the play area, but give them the opportunity for a direct adjacency to play field during recess. A lot of kids may not want to be on the equipment. They want to go out and kick the soccer ball around, throw a ball, whatever that may be, play catch. So that offers another opportunity with some of these types of layout. And then I've got another one that I'll show right after this, which is just kind of another thing I was talking with Dennis that, maybe there's an opportunity to move it a little bit. If you could forward to the next slide, Phil. So one thought would be maintaining that parking over by the pre-K, but moving the play area slightly so we can still maintain one row of parking in that front and the drive out, because some of the things we heard during the building committee meetings in schematic design, as well as the community forums, was, first and foremost, pedestrian access, right? So getting pedestrians to come in from Great Road, who may be walking with their children, riding bikes, etc. We've got one crossing, they can take the sidewalk all the way, and then we've got that one crossing immediately after bus drop off, which we plan on using a signaled crosswalk, a lighted crosswalk for pedestrians. Talking with Justin as part of our meeting last week, there's an opportunity, we'll put some raised crosswalks in, right, to highlight that, a different color maybe. And then they still have that direct connection to the school without crossing any more roads. That was huge during our community forums and some of the things we heard. And that's why the layout kind of morphed into what we currently have. But it also allows for after hours opportunities where if I'm a parent with very young children, I can park close to the play area for the pre-K, or vice versa. If I've got children, maybe one of my children is using the play field for town athletics after hours, but yet I still have little kids that want to be in the play area. So there's an opportunity for that direct adjacency after hours as well. Part of the security meetings, we talked about having cameras in these areas and having them properly illuminated for after hours to make sure that they're safe. Keeping them up front offers the opportunity for the police and fire department, et cetera, and even just people passing by to see these areas and make sure things are safe. There's nothing going on that shouldn't be. So right now, that's kind of where we stand with the two opportunities. As Lynn mentioned, they've got to study it a little bit further, make sure all the numbers work, make sure that we can, get the appropriate square footages, make sure the grades work, and then look at the drainage calculations for swapping the parking areas. The other thing this does offer an opportunity to is the Sustainability Committee, and as Phil mentioned earlier, talking about sustainable electricity, right? Solar regeneration. We've heard in the beginning that you were trying to get this building close to net zero, maybe even get to net zero. However, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, but the chair of the school committee said, yeah, it's all very nice, but she doesn't want canopies blocking a beautiful new school. So if we're going to do canopies, we have an opportunity to do canopies to the southern portion by the parent drop-off, which is on the kind of the southeast side of the building. And then we now have an opportunity to also put in the solar canopies over this parking area that's being relocated, and keeping the front of the building nice and open. So there's some opportunities this will allow that Lynn and everybody will study as part of this. You want to
I
add to
do
that?
just want to caution folks that there's so much study that has to happen with this. I mean, it's basically redesigning more than half the site. So I don't we needed to do this so that we could communicate to all of you what the goals are. But I just want to caution all of us to please don't react too much to what you're seeing on screen right now, because we just think about how much we vetted the circulation, pedestrian, bikes, students, all of these things during SD. That's why we're asking for this extension. We will need to do that same amount of time here because both scenarios have benefits, but both scenarios are challenging. And there's a lot to go into that requires study and consideration.
Thank you, Lynn. Josh?
Thank you. Chris, do you think it's possible to take a look at if there's an option? Is it possible to look at an option where we connect the playground and the field space directly to the school without having any asphalt in between point A and point B?
Yeah, we can look at that, absolutely.
And it might prove out that it's just too complicated. Like, I fully appreciate that the topography, the drainage, it's complicated. There's a lot to look at there, but it may be impossible or cost prohibitive, but just curious.
Yeah, everyone, this is an image that Josh is referring to that might be something that is looked at, but that's the thought.
And it may not work at all. I'll be the first to admit.
Yep. No, we
Yeah,
appreciate it though.
I could say something. It's really late in the game, but we can do this. But this is complicated and it's not going to be cheap. We should know that. We should not be saying all these great things that you can do, when in fact, we don't really know what the cost is, but the cost of design for this civil engineer and landscape architect are quite high. So I think the committee ought to know right up front that this is going to be an expensive change, because we have to, there may even be ledge removal involved here. So let's just tell the whole story. And, you know, I really appreciate what the school administration is saying, but there's no reason that the kids couldn't go down the hallway from the cafeteria and out the kindergarten exit. It's just as big an exit as any other exit. So it's really a safe way to do it as well. I just point that out.
Okay, any other questions before we go on to, oh, Chris, did you want to speak more to these or no?
No, I think that's it. This is just in
Yep.
response to the district's request.
Okay. So this next slide here has the 3 different proposals regarding this site design change. So you got Mount Vernon Group's proposal for their efforts in the amount of $6K, study of appropriate solutions, work with staff and consultants, coordination of meetings, ensure alignment with other project requirements, i.e. security. You have Mount Vernon Group's ad service for Brennan Consulting, the civil engineer, with Mount Vernon Group's markup, that's $37,840. And all these steps associated with that ad service proposal. And then Mount Vernon Group's ad service proposal for Studio 2112 in the amount of $19,800. That includes the 10% markup and all the effort here. Chris, I don't know if you wanted to step through any of this effort or.
That you have it laid out well, Phil. It's exactly what's included.
So Collier's reviewed these proposals. We feel that they're fair and reasonable, and based off of the desire for the change. We got the budget for it. We can get it done in the time frame we were hoping. So that's our thoughts on it. Mary, you're muted.
Yep, thank you. I just wanted to ask, is this the big change that's being discussed? Has there been anything else that we should maybe be thinking about, to Frank's point, you know, in the sustainability or anything like that? Any foreseen changes that we're anticipating having to maybe look at?
No, nope, this is the big one for, yep,
Okay.
nope,
Good to know. Thank you.
yep. Jennifer,
That was by accident, if my hand is up,
okay.
but I'm happy to make a motion for approval if we're ready for that.
Nick has his hand up.
Yeah, leaning on our design team here, just conversationally, have you seen schools with successful playgrounds where they have the bus lane cutting through? I was trying to remember back to one of our earlier visits. I can't remember the name of the town. We drove out to it and it was a great visit. I think there was like, you had to hop over to the side. It was way off to the side. I can't remember if there was like like a fire lane maybe through it, but I feel like that wasn't connected either, at least not directly out a door. What was the name of the school we went to that had the?
Was that Ludlow, Nick?
Yes, Ludlow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's front parking was in front, and you had to like kind of go way off to one side to get to the playground. That just you've got to have the layouts that have worked before that have something
Right.
cutting across.
There is a fire lane that goes around, and the school does use a gate to close that off during school hours.
Yeah, fire lane's different than the front
I mean,
drop off though.
fire lane is different than, yes, it is a good point, Nick. And I think, you know, what Chris was saying here is that I think the co-location of the K through 3 playground in relation to the school and the front door has definite benefits. If we can mitigate the amount of traffic that would maybe come through that bus lane. And this is where, you know, we're going to look at all the options. Like, is it the bus lane? That's easier to control. If it's the bus lane and parking, that's maybe a little more challenging, but maybe that has more benefits. And so there's a number of ways to do it. But I do think if that's just a bus lane drop off at the front of the school, there's things that we can do to control that. So nobody should be driving through there during the day at all.
So that's back one more version, right? The first version we showed. There we go. Yeah.
Josh.
So just a couple, well, a statement and then a quick question. So in my experience, with bus lanes, unless it is extremely well policed over time, they will get used by visitors. And the worst part about that is that they're most likely to be used by visitors as a one-off during the day. And the one challenge of that is that there becomes a false sense of security for staff and students crossing that bus lane. So if it's not really well policed, you get that parent that's in a hurry, running from work, dropping off the lunch bag that got forgot. And that's where a problem can occur. So just food for thought. The other one was, with several options being considered, would it be safe to assume, and I guess this is a question for Chris, would it be safe to assume that you would evaluate, I'm making it up, but 3 conceptual options, bring that to the group, get, kind of consensus on which one is preferred, and then move forward with all of the engineering? I just would hate to see multiple engineering efforts on options that may not pass muster.
Right. So that's exactly it, Josh. We'll bring a couple of different scenarios to you for your review and approval before any further engineering is done. So we hope to do that in the next, if you approve this tonight, we hope to do that within the next 3 weeks. We'll schedule a meeting. If we can get that done sooner, then fine. Once that's approved, we'll then take that one approved scenario and redo the engineering that we need to, grading, stormwater, et cetera.
Any other questions?
I guess, do you want to have another one of our, I guess it was planning and building group meetings between now and then to help give you like a little feedback along the way?
Yeah, we'll set something up, Nick, with the building and site working group.
Yeah.
So I'll
Right.
work with Lynn and Chris. We'll get a sense of when we can be ready to have, a couple of scenarios for you, get your feedback, get those finalized, and then bring it before the building committee for their review and approval.
Chris and Phil, this is Rob. Just real quickly is when we looked at this change, and we knew it was kind of late in the game, when we had taken a look at the other schools that we visited, the school in Marlboro, the playground was to the left of the building, outside of the cafeteria area, in which the kids were able to come in. It had that area, and that was both the upper and lower level of that school where we looked at. It was a longer playground that went across that down there, and kids were able to exit. Also, there was a door down there where they were able to exit for the day, and go out that way, where they got picked up from the parents out there. The second one that we went to visit up in Ludlow, as you said, was an area that was off the side of the building more. And they did have a background where they had a fielded area. It wasn't ready at the time, but they had a block off delivery road in the back, which the principal had explained to me that they did block off during the winter time or other times in order to play. And then when Brian and I visited Harvard, their school was in the front, kind of off again from the cafeteria. It was off the front of the building, but the cafeteria was in the front of the building when you looked at it. And they were able to exit from the cafeteria to the playground areas. And then my own town of Lancaster, although it's a much older building, it does have a drop-off zone, but their playground is located directly either from the cafeteria gymnasium area, and then you cross over that delivery or that drop-off because it's closed during the day, and there's a playground directly from there, and then there's fields. All of them is a little bit safe. When we looked at this, is we just wanted to make sure that every day when we know we're escorting the kids, and in case something happens to his child out there, that we're able to get the personnel out there as fast as possible, for the kids. Little kids do get injured from time to time, and the nurses have to be, able to respond, and we have to respond quickly in order to be there. Also, truthfully, with a lot of the stuff on our safety committee, we were talking about that. I do think this change would allow us for during the whole day, that K-3 area be much more visual for us as administration, in order to be there in case something ever did happen. We'd be able to quickly, be quicker to react to it. So again, our apologies for the timing of it, but until we really sat down and looked and looked and looked in the different changes in the building, we started to look at it as like, make believe we're here in this building, and what will that mean for us, for the kids each day. That was the reasons why.
So if there are any more questions or comments?
I would just say one thing, safety is always the paramount reason for anything any change in decision that you make on a school building. I've been doing it for 40 years. You have right now, the configuration of the play areas is the safest place to be. Because there was a very astute comment about people coming in after hours going down that bus loop. They're not supposed to go in there, but they do it all the time. This keeps the kids on one side of that. They don't have to cross any streets. So I'm not crazy about it. I differ with my colleagues in this, respectfully. And also I'm afraid of how much it's going to cost with the ledge over there. And the changing configuration, new drainage. We'll have to go back to planning board, I think, and other things to get this through. It's not an easy thing. If you open up the design process again, you're going to hear 100 different opinions. I think, and as an architect for many years, have done many of these. This is a very safe, and that's why it was set up the way it was. It's extremely safe. Those kids never go across anything. Once you get them to cross the street, somebody's got to be there. So it's every day you have a safety issue, not once a year, every day. So I would just consider that, please.
Karen?
Hi, thank you. And, thanks for letting me join the committee this evening. I understand and appreciate, Frank, what you're sharing in terms of the site for the playground and all of the work that will go into needing to move and make these adjustments for the playground. But I will say, in a school where our kindergartners are 5 and 6 years old, logistically, it is a long way for a kindergartner who needs to get to the bathroom quickly or needs to get in to see the nurse to travel. And I hear what you're saying about a child being able to walk down the hallway, but once they're inside the building, if classes are in session, we can't guarantee there's a staff member who's there in the building to quickly help that child get to where they need to go. There is something about being able to have easy access to the nurse, to the main office, to administration when the child comes into the building. That lobby area is going to be much busier than that end hallway. The other piece to consider is that while that K-3 playground area is fenced off, somebody's got to be able to let that child out of the fenced in area, walk them down to the doorway, and then be able to get them inside the building and essentially escort them down to the bathrooms, which are a ways down that hallway.
Now, the
Well,
kindergartens
staff
have their
members
own
will-
toilets in their rooms. They don't go to
Right,
the toilet.
but they're not necessarily during the lunch periods, they're not going right back to their own classrooms. They're outside with additional staffing. The other thing to consider is if we've got an entire grade in that kindergarten, in that K-3 playground area, in that fenced in area, and there is an emergency reason to get everybody back into the building, they're out there. It's not as quick to move 100, 110, 115 children down that sidewalk and into that one entry area in the K-3 hallway. Logistically, for us, I understand the cost, and it's regrettable that this conversation is happening at this point in the conversation. But logistically, and from a safety perspective, on the day-to-day, moving the playground is better for Green Meadow. And I would say, as a community member, if you're there and your child is playing on the field, they have a soccer game, you can see your child at the playground from the field. You can't where the playground is currently situated. So in terms of longevity and usage for the community, moving the playground does seem preferable. I understand the cost. I respect this process and how much time people have put into the process. I'm just saying when this design was shared with staff to really consider the logistics of the day-to-day from a safety point of view, these are the comments that were brought forward.
Thank you, Karen. Josh?
Just going to say one thing that might, you know, Frank, I get where you're coming from, but I think for the group, one thing to consider is that if we approve this evening, this would go through as a contract amendment for the values shown, but there's nothing that says that we don't have another bite at the apple when these concepts are shown in a couple weeks. What I would suggest, at least for us, is if folks are comfortable, approve it. And then when the concepts are shown, if we don't see something that is significant, that is a significant improvement, then we don't have to go further than that. We could always, work with Collier's and team to claw that money back as a amendment as part of one of the future amendments. I suspect what you'll see is that, given a little bit of time, Mount Vernon Group will be able to come back with some concepts that prove out as beneficial. But if they don't, that's their burden. And if they can't convince the group that there's benefit in moving forward to the next phase, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Just my 2 cents.
Well, makes a lot of sense. I regret that these things weren't brought up during the extensive design period that we had. But like I say, one of the main criteria, and everybody's talking safety here. That's really why people are saying they want this done, is for safety. This is the safest place for your playgrounds. And because they don't ever have to cross the street. And that's what kids, when they're playing, that's what they do. They run across, they try to get across. And this way they have to go across. So that's a street crossing every time. Even though you say nobody can go up there, you'd have to have somebody at the end of that intersection to make sure nobody comes up. So that just only takes one day. So we always try to, when I hear design input, it's always about the one-off thing that might happen. Well, I can tell you that one-off thing that somebody brought up earlier that might happen, that probably will happen, people are going to use that, and the guy that was supposed to be there wasn't there for some good reason. Those are the kinds of things too. But when you eliminate the even possibility of them having to cross a street or a large driveway, you're safer.
Jennifer?
So I was essentially going to say the same thing that Joshua was asking to ask a question, that this is getting design plans or potential plans, not moving forward with the change. And it, as Josh indicated, I think it makes sense if the staff are indicating that this feels like a logistical change in how they would like to run and operate. I think if folks feel that the financials work out, it's worth getting the plans and getting to see what it looks like, and then we can decide from there how to move forward.
Okay. If there aren't any more questions or comments, ready for a motion, Jerry? Or
Yeah, I'm gonna ask for a motion and a second on MVG's additional services review, discussing the playgrounds, and to all of the points just made, and Josh and Jennifer just made the same thing. Yeah, let's go through this process and see where it takes us. And we can make a decision at that point. Yes, it's going to cost some money, but I think at this point in time, it's worth it. Looking at this motion, looking at my simple math, am I right? We're talking 63,640. That seem right?
correct, yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask one more quick question to the community, to the administration?
Yep.
Is there, so you're asking for the two playgrounds to be separated. That functionally works if you can find, going back to Josh's sort of back of napkin sketch, digital back of napkin sketch. Having them that remote is still functionally, operationally the same for you guys. Doesn't staffing wise doesn't make a difference if they're together at one end or they're two separate kids areas. They function differently, different cycles
Yeah,
of timing.
Nick, they function differently. The K-3 functions when the kids leave and go out from the cafeteria. There reaches an extension after they eat. So that time period is important to us, and the travel time. The people who are watching those people are people who are on duty, and they're placed there by Karen and I. And they come from it. The people from the preschool, they are kind of an entity on their own. The preschool area will be just for the preschool kids. That's how it is now. And so as long as they can have access to that at any time during the day, that's really, really important to us. The others only need it on a certain period of time of the day, 2 hours of the day, by the way, but that's what they need it for. The other one is, they need it more often, the preschool, to have that flexibility to be able to go in and out.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Jennifer, your hand is still up. I assume you just didn't take it down. That be correct?
That is correct, but I will make a motion that we approve the MVG additional services review.
Perfect. Do I get a second?
I can
That's the
second.
part one, right? Additional services part one, the 6,000.
No, we have to
Very-
bring in,
Yeah.
you're
The
gonna
whole
be,
thing.
you're gonna be
Okay.
approving it. I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't get spent. I want very, very easily, I want these concepts done, and I'm gonna ask the civil engineer, landscape architect, and us, how much is it gonna cost? Because you may be surprised at how much it is because of it's because of the topography.
Right, but
So
right
I think
now,
it's
go ahead, Jennifer.
approval for, a motion to approve the MVG additional services for 6,000, MVG additional services for Brennan Consulting Civil, $37,840, and MVG additional services for Studio 2112 Landscape Architect for $19,800.
Correct. Do I have a second?
I can second.
Mary, second. Thank you. Via roll call for approval. Justin,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
I is not here. Rob,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
thank you. Nick,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
thank you. That's unanimous. 63,640 approved.
Thank you. Mary, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, just, and thank you very much, Frank, for your comments too.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated, but I just wanted to make sure that when we look at this alternative, if the group can look at what are the caveats that we can use to safeguard if we go this way. Like for instance, Green Meadow has a very cursory thing that they just have 2 cones and they have a rope in between, and that keeps anybody from going, close to the school and that. But just to know what safeguards we can put in place to make this work and make it safest for the kids. So that's it.
Thank you. Okay, next agenda item, review plumbing code required showers for gymnasium. Chris, well, there's a few different topics in this slide, but Chris, you want to take it?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So there's a couple of plan changes. We reviewed these with the working group. One of them does have some impact on the new plumbing code. The first one I want to go over is just Well, we'll go over the plumbing code first. So if we look at the upper right on the back side of the gymnasium, we added 2 toilet rooms with showers between the storage rooms. The new plumbing code that came out at the beginning of December indicates that all schools, if you have fixed seating in the gymnasiums, you're required to have a shower for each, the male and female, boys, girls, men, women, especially if you're using these facilities after hours, for the opportunity for people to shower. So we added a toilet room in there as well for the shower, because it just doesn't make sense to do a shower alone. You get the facilities of plumbing. It adds about 250 to 300 square feet. Big picture, not a huge impact. It does meet the plumbing code. It does provide additional toilet facilities inside the gym when the gym is being used. And it maximizes our count. The plumbing code also had some changes. We are updating our code review since schematic design on, they changed the plumbing count. How many people per fixture required? It used to be, as an example, say 1 fixture, 1 toilet for every 100 people. Now it's, that's been reduced, and how they calculate it's changed a little bit. So we're updating that, but the showers was the big item. Typically you'd put a shower in, middle school, definitely high school, gymnasiums, etc. Early childhood, I don't think anybody has students that shower, but anyway, that's the change there related to the plumbing code. We did add 2 showers with toilet facilities. Josh?
Yeah, just real quick, if well, not if I guess you have to do it, but if we're gonna have showers here, just food for thought, it's a luxury, if you will, in an elementary school, but because of that fixed seating, but with that luxury, I would imagine that staff who bike to work, may not be a ton of them, but for those that do, they will likely want to use those showers. So you may want to just, and I guess it's really more for the district, you may want to consider having a small number of lockers in there, and just think of it through that lens when you go to outfit that space. Just a thought.
Ken?
Sorry, there's that button again. Another morsel for thought there. 2 toilet shower facilities. It seems binary. Would we perhaps have 3, and maybe all of them are single user, non-gender specific?
That's a thought, Ken, if the committee would like. So they are gender neutral, but the plumbing code only counts them 1 for each, if you will.
So Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, we could just identify those as, we could sign those as gender neutral too.
That's what he's saying. Yeah.
That's what you're saying? Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, so like right now, Chris, they're not men's and women's. They're quite literally both unisex, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the changes to the plumbing related changes. It's just the 2 toilet rooms with the showers. We did make some other adjustments on the first floor. One, in the upper left-hand corner. Originally, we had the mechanical room up on the 2nd floor. Made sense due to space constraints, etc. So now that we have a geothermal system planned, and the geothermal wells will be at the rear of the building, close to the mechanical room, it was best determined in talking with our geothermal consultants, our mechanical engineers, that we would move the mechanical room down to the 1st floor level, minimize the length of the piping that's got to go from the wells to the units. The geothermal heat pump equipment, there's a few more pieces of equipment, if you will, and this offered the appropriate space opportunity. What we did was we moved the main electric and the emergency electric room to the 2nd floor, where the mechanical room was. So space for space, it was an even trade. It just makes this more viable for the well system, et cetera. So that was a change that we made. We did bring that up with the working group on last Friday. And then the last change is to the administration area and the administration entrance. As a result of our security meeting with the participants, I believe the school administration was on that meeting, et cetera. We talked about how the original design and the gatekeeping process. So with our security consultant, made some recommendations, trying to keep the gatekeeping secure as to not allowing people to go directly from the vestibule into the school. And Phil, if you bring up the next slide, have enlargement. So what this will do is it'll allow people who enter, visitors, et cetera, during school hours, they'll come in the main entrance to the vestibule. They will engage administration at a secure transaction window. The vestibule is locked down. They have to be buzzed in. If they are deemed safe, they will be buzzed into the admin reception area, at which they can conduct their business, drop off lunch, pick up a child who may be ill, et cetera, and then exit. If they are deemed to be needing access to the school, they can then be buzzed into the school from the administration area at that door to the right. What this does is provide better gatekeeping and control per our security consultant. We reviewed it with the administration, as opposed to having them go directly from the vestibule and then being buzzed into the school without being an additional kind of line of defense or vetting, if you will. This offers a better position that if they're picking up somebody that may be ill, there's a direct corridor from the nurse's suite that can come down. Their children can be escorted directly to the admin reception, or if a parent needs to go to the health suite, they can be escorted down there to consult with the school nurse, pick up their child, et cetera. So it provides a more secure and vetting process for visitors. So that was one of the changes we made, just with doors and locking of hardware, et cetera. Any questions on those two minor plan changes? All right. So our next slide, we've done some work on the elevations. Dennis Daly has been working with another couple of members of our staff, updating the elevations, getting them more refined. A couple of things you'll notice, we do not have the colored metal panels on the building anymore, given the new energy code and trying to minimize infiltration, et cetera. It's just better to keep it a masonry system without penetrations through the air and vapor barriers, making sure that our air infiltration is minimal. Because what we do have to do, there will be testing as we go along, and then we have to make sure we're meeting those infiltration rates. At the end of the job, we're going to be required to plug those infiltration rates back into the Teddy model to show that they continue compliance. The colors that are currently on are just placeholders. They're not the colors that we'll be using at this point necessarily. We're going to work with the building committee and the building and site subcommittee to go through the selection of colors, but gives you an example of the brick coursing, the striping, that the pop outs and bump outs to reduce the scale of the building for the younger group of students. We added a little colonnade to mimic the one that's at Green Meadow. Will allow students to stay under cover while being picked up for the bus, if they're outside, out of the weather, et cetera, in a shaded area. And then the kind of center tower right now, kind of the focal point of the entrance, is still being worked on, how that's going to work. But it gives you an idea of the solar components on the roof, some rooftop units that are currently being placed. All these things are continuing to be, kind of worked out and flushed out during the design development phase. The site graphics have not been updated at this point. We want to get at least the rendering going to show everybody, kind of how the elevations are taking shape and working out. The next slide will show the rear elevation as well. As the road comes around to the parent drop off, some additional parking, kind of just gives you the scale of the back of the building as well. And we're continuing some of that kind of facade breakup with the bump outs and the striping of masonry, et cetera. Any questions on it so far? As I mentioned, we're going to get to a point in one of the upcoming meetings. We'll work with the building and site working groups to start looking at colors of the materials, et cetera, and how that works out. Ken?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Might you also have a canopy for waiting for pickup on this south side as well?
I'm sorry?
Might you also consider a canopy on this side, on the the drop-off pickup elevation somewhere.
The drop for the parent drop off and pick up. That's
Yeah.
something we can certainly look at and study, Ken.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Chris, is
Anything?
there, where do the buses and possibly the cars, where do they interact at some particular point for the drop off for the buses and then the cars? Are the cars always go someplace away from the buses?
Yeah, so the front will show the bus drop off that comes in from the right, lower right to the left. There's that little peel off for staff and visitor parking. The buses will queue up in the front, pick up and drop off students, and then exit out on the rear side. We can go to that elevation, Phil. You'll see the cars will continue from Great Road around to the left side of the building in the back. And they'll continue around and then they'll peel off before the parking lot and line up. That's a one-way narrow area for just the cars. Nobody can pass another car when they're pulled up there. So yeah, they are separate, Rob. That's one of the, the big things that Frank mentioned. That's one of the big safety items we want to make sure we incorporate in our projects.
I just want to make sure, Chris, when they come together, when they come around the front of the buses and the buses, they go for the pickup, they're going to, at some particular point, the buses and the cars are going to come together because they all have to exit out one area.
Right here.
Right.
Right
So right where
there.
Phil's pointing to, that's the location where they will
Yes.
kind of merge and go back out to Tiger Drive
Yeah,
and then back to Great Road.
all right.
The bus count's like 4 buses though, right?
We have 4 buses, yes. Currently, those buses get out, will leave us because of the timing of everything as of 3 to 3:05. They come in, they will park as of 2:45 and they will leave us at 3:05. Parents will begin parking, as we well know, a little earlier, right? And then we get out at 2:50. So expect that parents will want to pick up their children at 2:50 to 3 o'clock. So the first bus will leave us as of around. We're just going to have to make sure that we have somebody out there to stop traffic and buses can go. You know what I mean, or vice versa, or whatever it is. I'm just being wary of it as it goes through, Chris. That's all.
Absolutely.
Do the parents picking up go to the south side lot where they do drop off, or do they all go around front and kids that come out either jump on the bus or divert and walk along the buses to go to parking behind the buses? Like, are you splitting the kids up inside, I guess? Or are you?
Yeah. So right now, if you think about it, Nick, there's no pickup as far as a car goes at this moment.
Everybody walks up to the Crow Park.
Right. They come up and then they walk through. So all of that traffic is down that other side. The buses come up and then they go through the loop and then they go out, Tiger Drive. And there's a crossing guard that's down there in order to make sure that it stops that traffic as they go. It's just that we're now going to not have as many physical pickups, I should say, as far as parents walking to the school to pick up their kid, unless they're walking from Crow Park coming up or walking somewhere else and then leaving and walking their kids to their car. They're physically going to come in with their cars. That's just way different for the kid, for the parents. And you're talking half the school.
So I'm wondering if you're saying those parents are going to wait around the main entrance near the buses.
No,
and then have
I'm
to
thinking,
walk around the school to the back lot where they put their cars.
No, I'm thinking they're going to come in and go around the back, Nick.
Yeah,
and
the
then
back.
At some particular point, we're going to have 75 cars, coming through the loop, and we're also going to have 4 buses coming through the loop.
Okay.
Meeting at that intersection right there.
So,
Right.
like I said, you're diverting 2 groups of children from inside. The kids
Correct.
who ride buses go out the front door to the buses. The kids we all know we're getting picked up because they are.
Yes.
You
Yes.
figured it out. They're all going out the back door to the south lot.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. They will either be put into the cafeteria or the gymnasium, and then they will walk, because then they have to be brought to that exit.
Yeah, so can you show the floor plan, Chris? Because it's off the same lobby, you know, they just go
Yeah.
either out the front door or the back door, so it's open.
Right.
I just want to make sure not every kid's gonna go out the front door and have to shuffle
No.
around on
No,
on
no,
the edge of the
no.
buses to figure out where they're going. That's all.
No,
No.
no. And the preschool kids, as I said earlier, will be 10 minutes earlier down and be picked up at the preschool area.
Yeah, you know, Rob, one of the things we'll also look at is how to help the circulation with signage. You know,
Yep.
stop signs at those types of intersections, et cetera, right?
Yeah, I think it's better, Chris, as you said, picking them up at that, on that left-hand side, because that allows us to kind of stop that, traffic control that before they go on out to the main road. You know what I mean? Maybe we will have to take a look at the busing and just, you know, play around with the timing just a little bit also. That's all. Anything can be done.
Chris, anything else? A design update?
I believe that's it. We're gonna continue on through design development, as we have been, getting everything coordinated for our submission to MSBA.
Perfect. So next agenda item, community forum schedule update. So as you all know, the intent was to have it next Monday, 1st. With the site design potential change thrown in the mix, the thought was let's get past that and then present to the community. So what we present to them is the most updated site plan. So that's the idea with that is not have it April 1st, but potentially put it off to some point in May. So that's the idea with the community forum. And we landed on, in terms of back and forth, in terms of location, all in person or remote or hybrid, it was going to be select board room in the town hall and treat it as a hybrid meeting. The thought is whenever we have it, do it the same way. Select board room, town hall, and have it hybrid. So we'll keep everybody, essentially we'll just, as the site design change flows, that's how we'll figure out when we have it, but that's the plan for that. New or other business? You're muted, Jerry.
Yeah, my lips were moving. I wasn't really talking.
Oh,
So that was okay. That's all right. I get old, I mumble once in a while. So next meeting, April 29th, which you had said earlier in tonight's meeting.
Yep.
We will have at least one or two different working group meetings, I assume, between now and the 29th. To discuss, I think, two things. One is site, but I think safety, security, I don't know if that is another meeting we have to have, or that kind of, the safety aspect kind of comes in under the site working group. I don't know, but leave that to you folks to get those set up and when the timing is. But we need to have one or two meetings in advance of the 29th for sure, so that I want to say subcommittee, a working group of this committee can help you and Chris explain to the full committee, what was discussed, the pros and cons. So it's school administration and it's individuals from this committee have reviewed the whole thing. And I think that's going to help it a lot. And keeping in mind all the things that Frank said tonight, nobody's discounting any of that. We're talking money. We may look at this, you go through this design process and somebody says, yeah, that's fine. It's going to cost $2.5 million more. Okay, that might be a talking point, So anyhow, is there anything else of community forum to be determined? When do we want to try to determine that? Does anybody on this committee have a date in May or a time in May or other things that are going on in the town in May that would preclude having a community forum? Because I am not aware. I don't know all the dates for multiple town functions, so.
What town meeting is in May? What date is that, Greg?
It's actually
it was May 20th.
Yeah, I just looked myself. Yeah, it's May 20th, so we want to stay
May-
within that date.
The
May-
local election is May 7th and the town meeting is May 20th.
Okay, so 20th and 7th won't work. Good.
But that's a Tuesday, the election, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
And then you
I mean,
get
we don't have,
close to Memorial Day, so yeah.
yeah, so we don't have to settle this tonight either, but I just want to make sure if there are conflict dates, we need to be aware of what they are. You're right, Memorial Day, when is that? What's the day? Anybody look at the calendar?
It's actually the 27th, May
27.
27th.
All right, so that's 3 dates we can't use. Not that we would be using those dates anyway, but we don't want to be having a public forum the day necessarily, excuse me, the day before or the day after some other large event. Because we would like to get people to focus on this, not have this just be, oh, another thing I have to do this week. So I would suggest if we don't have a specific date in mind or a commitment right now, just, send me an email, let me know. Let's, people throw out a few dates. We'll talk to, with Chris and Phil and we'll land on something. Josh, you get your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if we're gonna vote to submit the DD set to MSBA on May 20th, it might be a good idea to have the community forum before that so that we're not,
Mhm.
not voting on it and then going to the community and saying, so what do you think?
Well, you're right, because we go beyond that, then we're bumping into, Memorial Day and people go away and their thoughts are getting a little different at that point. So I was hoping something between the 7th and the 20th. I'm not looking at my calendar, so I don't know dates. If somebody wants to look, and maybe we even peg a tentative one right now. So May 7th is a Tuesday and the 20th is a Monday. So it'd be the week of May 13th.
Or May 6th,
Okay,
yeah, because it's just that would be, either of those two is probably good.
so the 6th, yeah, the 7th is what? Just a vote, right?
Yeah, it's just the election.
I hope the people running for something don't think that,
That's the 7th, that moves the select board meeting to the 8th.
okay.
So May 8th is a select board meeting, so if it's that night, you'll be missing some people who might be interested and who might be expected to speak on the 20th about it.
So the 6th would be tough, because now we're asking for a public forum on the 6th, some voting on the 7th, select board meeting the 8th. That makes it a busy week. How about the 13th? Or 14th? Doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm just saying the 13th because it's a Monday. We seem to do most things on Mondays. Would May 13th sound like a?
Yeah.
And we don't have to vote on that tonight. I'm
Yeah.
just throwing it out.
I was
There's a
actually thinking that a Tuesday would be better, because Mondays always seem tough for people, but if
Okay.
everybody else thought Monday was better, then we could do that, but.
Okay. Let's take a guess right now that it could be Tuesday, the 14th of May for the public forum. Would anybody here tonight have an objection to that? And we're not voting on it, we're just looking for opinion. Any objection to that date? No, I'm not.
No.
I have a conflict that I may be able to get out of, but
We
Yeah.
do need you. We do need you, Phil.
no, I know.
So,
Yeah.
so maybe tentatively just keep those two dates, the 13th and the 14th is available?
Yeah,
That way, yeah.
I could say this, the 13th would be better for
Okay.
me, yeah, but anyways,
Yep,
yeah.
that's okay. You're
Yeah,
important.
for me as well.
Yeah, you guys are important.
So maybe the 13th might be the date then, right?
That'd be better, yeah.
Great.
Not to say that you guys are key people, but you are. 13th. Unless I hear differently, I'm going to make an assumption that it will be the 13th. And again, we're not voting, just discussion. Any other open issues that anybody would choose to bring up? And I also do not think we have any members of the public on this call right now. I have not seen anybody that I have not recognized.
I've got
No.
a quick question
ahead.
on process. We've got a lot of drawings. I may have a question or two by the time I go through all of them. Is it a thing I would just maybe write up or whatever and send in through Jerry and Phil and let you guys distribute?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. If there are no other, excuse me, coming back to this nice warm climate up here, I have caught myself a cold, so pardon my coughing. If there are no other comments, or open issues, I would certainly entertain a motion to adjourn.
I can make that.
Thank you, Mary. And would I have a second on that?
I will second.
Thank you, Nick. Via roll call. Justin,
Aye.
thank you. Chris,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Jennifer. Jennifer drop off?
No,
May
I'm
have-
here.
No?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. Wayne,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark,
Yes.
thank you. Anthony,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
we got that button. Good boy. Josh,
Yes.
that's it for voting members. Unanimous. Meeting is officially adjourned.